There's a place in Singapore that, even in broad daylight, many people wouldn't dare enter. An old building. The corridors were pitch black. The hospital rooms were covered in dust. The iron gates have rusted over time. And above all, there are countless rumors about the sound of footsteps, of no one. The sound of a trolley cart echoed in the middle of the night. White figures appeared at the end of the hallway and then vanished after only a few seconds. That's Old Changi Hospital. Some people call this place Singapore's most famous haunted hospital. But the scariest thing about this place, could it really be a ghost? Or is it its bloody history that makes this place one of Asia's most mysterious locations? Today, we will now step into the place where thousands of people once lived. Thousands of people have died. And perhaps, not all of them have left. If you enjoy unsolved mysteries, visit our channel for more fascinating videos. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Part 1. A hospital in the middle of war. If you only look from the outside, Old Changi Hospital looks like any other abandoned building. The walls are faded, the windows were shattered, the long corridor was shrouded in darkness. But very few people know. All the terrifying stories in this place began nearly a century ago. Let's rewind time to the early 1930s. Singapore was still a colony of the British Empire at that time. Thanks to its strategic location on Southeast Asia's most important shipping lane, this small island quickly became a crucial military base. The British believed that if Singapore fell, the entire area will be in danger. That's why they built a series of modern military facilities. Among them is a hospital located on Changi Hill, where the air is cool and it is isolated from the city center. That's Old Changi Hospital. Initially, the hospital did not serve the general public. It was built specifically for the British Army. The soldiers were wounded, the officers contracted tropical diseases, or soldiers who need long-term treatment. They were all brought here. At that time, Old Changi Hospital was considered one of the most modern military hospitals in the region. The rows of houses were designed in the colonial style. The patient rooms are spacious and have many windows to take advantage of natural light and ventilation. Everything was built with the goal of saving lives. No one could have imagined, less than 10 years later, this very place witnessed one of the darkest periods in Singapore's history. December 1941, the Pacific War broke out. The Japanese army launched an offensive into the Malay Peninsula with a speed that surprised even the British. What the British once believed to be an impregnable fortress began to crumble. One by one, the strongholds fell. By February 1942, Singapore has officially surrendered. This is considered one of the greatest military defeats in the history of the British Empire. After capturing the island, the Japanese military took over many military facilities in the Changi area, including the hospital. At the same time, the Changi area became a detention center for tens of thousands of Allied prisoners of war. Soldiers from Britain, Australia, New Zealand, India, and many other countries were brought here after the fall of Singapore. The living conditions were extremely harsh. Food shortage. There is a shortage of medicine. Disease is spreading. Many people never have the chance to return to their homeland. While not every anecdotal story about Old Changi Hospital is corroborated by historical documents, the Changi area is indeed steeped in memories of war, separation, and loss. Perhaps it is those memories. This gave the place a heavy atmosphere that many people still feel to this day. People often say, a building cannot remember, but the walls. There is also a way to preserve the stories of the people who have lived through it. And Old Changi Hospital. It seems they are still quietly recounting those stories, in their own way. To better retain viewers, I could also expand on Season 2 in a more cinematic style, with more transitions and cliffhangers, similar to channels like Dark 5, Fascinating Horror, or Wartime Stories. Part 2. The Hospital Forgotten by Time. The war is over. The gunfire gradually subsided. Singapore is beginning a gradual recovery, and Old Changi Hospital, once again, he returned to his rightful role. For decades afterward, it continued to serve the military, before expanding to accommodate civilians in the Changi area and eastern Singapore. Day after day, ambulances continued to drive through the gate regularly. The doctors hurried through the corridors. The nurses stayed up all night to take care of the patients. The sound of the heart monitor, the sound of the stretcher wheels rolling on the tiled floor, the sound of patients' names being called echoed from the treatment rooms. Old Changi Hospital has witnessed countless moments of life. Some babies utter their first cries. Some patients recover after months of treatment. But there are also those who can never leave this place. That's the rule in every hospital. A place that saves lives. It is also a place where people face the fragile boundary between life and death. By the end of the 20th century, Singapore had developed at a rapid pace. The healthcare system is more modern. The population is growing, Older hospitals are gradually becoming unable to meet the growing demand for medical services. In 1997, an important decision was made. Old Changi Hospital officially ceased operations after its services were transferred to a new, more modern facility. Within a few weeks, the last patients left. The doctors are tidying up the files. The medical equipment was dismantled. The rooms, which had once been crowded, suddenly fell silent. Already, the front door closed. No one is working anymore. The conversation has stopped. There were no more lights on all night. Only a vast building remains, standing silently amidst time. But the strange thing is, a structure that once saved so many lives was not immediately demolished. It still exists. Day after day, year after year, no one lives there, inactive. The rain and sun began to erode the walls one by one. The paint is peeling off in patches. Moss covered the steps of the staircase. The vines crawled through the window. The tree roots are growing through the cracks in the concrete floor. Nature seems to be slowly reclaiming what humans once built. Stepping inside at that moment, the scene was like a world frozen in time. The corridors stretched on endlessly. The patient rooms were empty. The doors were slightly ajar, as if someone had just left. Light filters through the broken panes of glass, creating dark spaces that stimulate the human imagination more than ever before. It was that silence. This is something that makes many people feel uneasy. When a place that was once always crowded suddenly becomes completely silent, the human brain tends to fill the void with curiosity, anxiety, and even fear. That's when the rumors started to circulate. Initially, it was just a few stories passed down orally. One person said they heard footsteps inside the building. Others reported seeing lights on the upper floor, even though there was no electricity there. Then those stories were told and retold. Each time, a new detail is added. Each time, it got scarier. No one knows exactly where the original story came from, but only for a short time. Old Changi Hospital is no longer referred to as an old hospital. It has become a name associated with some of Singapore's most terrifying legends. And, from here, the place's reputation began to spread beyond the island nation's borders, attracting filmmakers, adventure explorers, and even paranormal hunters. But are all those rumors true? Or perhaps it was the gloomy atmosphere of a forgotten building that led people to believe they were seeing things that didn't exist? That's the question that will lead us to the next part of the story. Part 3. Haunting Rumors. Fact or Imagination? There's something very strange. No one knows exactly who first told the story about Old Changi Hospital being haunted. There are no official records. There are no historical documents to confirm this. But then, rumors began to spread. From one person to another, from internet forums. This leads to television programs specializing in paranormal phenomena. And in just a short time, Old Changi Hospital has become a name that almost everyone in Singapore has heard of. People say, if you enter the building after dark, never go alone, because you can hear someone walking behind you. Initial. The sound is very faint, like the sound of shoes hitting the tile floor. Cup, cup, cup. Every time you stop, the sound also disappeared, but as soon as I continued walking, it reappeared, getting closer and closer. Many people thought it was just an echo in the long corridor, or the sound of dripping water and wind whistling through the gaps in the old building. But for those who have experienced it, that feeling was enough to make them turn around and run away. Another story that has been mentioned a lot. Some people reported seeing a woman in a nurse's uniform standing at the end of the hallway. She said nothing, just stand still. As they approached, the figure disappeared. To date, there is no reliable evidence to confirm that this story is true. However, the image of the ghost nurse has become part of the oral tradition surrounding Old Changi Hospital. Not only that, some people even reported hearing the sound of a patient's stretcher rolling on the floor, the sound of a metal door slamming shut, or the sound of children crying echoing from the empty rooms. The interesting thing is, these stories are not alike at all. Each person tells a story in a different way. No one can verify this, but the more ambiguous it becomes, they further stimulate human curiosity. In the early 2000s, with the rapid development of the internet, Old Changi Hospital quickly became a hot topic of discussion on online forums. Numerous paranormal investigation groups have arrived. They brought infrared cameras, voice recorder, electromagnetic measuring device. Hopefully, this will provide the first documented evidence of the unexplained. Some videos show strange lights, unusual sounds, or blurry shadows appear in the frame. But when analyzed more closely, most of these can be explained by light reflection, image distortion, wind noise, animals, or the characteristics of a deteriorating structure. Until today, there is no scientific evidence to prove that Old Changi Hospital is actually haunted. But that doesn't mean this place isn't scary. Psychologists suggest that when people enter a dark, quiet place that already has a reputation for being scary, their brains become more alert than usual. A gust of wind whistled through the window. A metal plate vibrates due to a change in temperature, or the sounds of birds, bats, or stray cats moving around in the building. They could all be interpreted as something supernatural. This phenomenon is called the expectation effect. When you believe you are about to encounter something terrible, the brain will try to find every possible sign to reinforce that belief. But perhaps that's not the only reason Old Changi Hospital is famous. Because later on, this place attracts not only the curious, it has also become the setting for horror films, television shows, and countless videos exploring abandoned locations. Images of corridors covered in dust, the staircases were pitch black, the windows were in ruins. They are appearing on screen more and more often. The boundary between truth and the legend. It's becoming increasingly insignificant. To this day, it's very difficult to know which stories are true. It's not just a product of imagination. And it is precisely that ambiguity. This further solidifies Old Changi Hospital's reputation as one of Singapore's most mysterious and intriguing places. If you enjoyed the story of Miyamoto Musashi, please visit our channel for more fascinating videos about other mysterious stories. Part 4. Inside the Forgotten Hospital. What remains? If you look at Old Changi Hospital from above, you'll see this isn't just a single building. It's actually a large hospital complex, consisting of many buildings connected by long corridors. Nowadays, most of the entrances were locked or barricaded. This area is not open to the public. However, for many years after the hospital closed, numerous people tried to sneak inside. It's not about treasure hunting. It wasn't meant to be destructive either, simply because they wanted to see with their own eyes what was once known as Singapore's most famous haunted hospital. The photos and videos captured reveal a scene completely different from what many people had imagined. There were no white figures gliding through the corridor. There are no automatic doors that open. There are no self-rolling strollers in the night. Instead, it was almost complete silence. The corridors stretched so far that it was difficult to see where they ended. The hospital rooms were completely empty. The paint is peeling off in large chunks. The broken window panes let the wind blow through, creating a constant screeching sound. In some places, trees have grown through the concrete foundation. The tree roots are creeping into the walls. Vines covered the balcony and windows. Nature is gradually reclaiming the space that humans once occupied. What surprised many people was, despite being abandoned for decades, the atmosphere inside still had the feel of a hospital. The old signposts. The room number is still attached to the door. Some medical markings fade over time. They all look like the remaining pieces of a place that was once constantly bustling with activity. That very scene made many people feel as if time had stopped. Many photographers and those who enjoy exploring abandoned places consider Old Changi Hospital a time capsule. Not because this place is still intact, because every corner of the wall tells a story of change, a place that once saved lives. Ultimately, we cannot escape the laws of time. However, attempting to break into a hospital is not only dangerous, but may also violate local regulations. There are many risks inside the building. The floor is in poor condition. The ceiling could collapse. Broken glass, rusted metal, and potholes appeared in many places. Just one careless step can lead to a serious accident. Therefore, Singaporean authorities have repeatedly reinforced barriers and restricted public access to the area. The interesting thing is, even though we couldn't freely enter, Old Changi Hospital has not faded from the public memory. It appears in horror movies, television programs about mysterious places, discovery videos on YouTube, and thousands of articles on the internet. Each person told a different version. Some people believe that this place is actually haunted. Some people believe it's all just a psychological effect. Some simply view Old Changi Hospital as a part of Singapore's history, where war, medicine, and legend inadvertently intertwine. Maybe. What makes Old Changi Hospital special isn't whether or not it's haunted, but it's in that, a building that has been out of use for a very long time. It continues to intrigue millions of people around the world. And the biggest question remains, if one day, the doors of Old Changi Hospital have reopened, will we only find an old, dilapidated hospital forgotten by time? Or will they uncover secrets that have remained buried behind crumbling walls for nearly a century? That's probably why the name Old Changi Hospital continues to appear on lists of Asia's most mysterious places.